Okay, it is time to get into the live session. If you are here, I'd love to hear from you. It is 2 o'clock Pacific time right now, and I'm really excited. So it's let's see, make sure it's grabbing all the right camera and everything. If oh, there we go. I got this echo going on with Facebook, so or not with Facebook, with things. So let's just make sure. Yep, it is using the right camera. So welcome to my Facebook Live. I do a weekly Facebook Live every Friday. I decided not to. Let me straighten my neck out here. There we go. I decided to. Hey, Dom, you're here. Great. I decided not to do it on what's it called on Instagram this time around. I figured I wanted to do it right here because I think it's really, I wanted to focus my attention solely on the YouTube crowd today. Those of you who are subscribed to YouTube, if you want to make sure you don't miss a single live, hit the subscribe button and the bell to get notified. Today, I really want to focus on a few very key things as we're in some really uncertain times right now. We're in some uncharted waters rather. And I wanted to spend some time talking about the idea of being prudent and reason and things like that when it comes especially to your productivity and your time. Now, we're only going to spend about a half hour here today because your time is, of course, precious, as is, mine. I want to make sure that I deliver what I can in this time frame. And so really what I want to get into today is that idea of prudence. And for those of you that are watching that don't know what prudence is, the definition of prudence is the ability to govern and discipline oneself by the use of reason. And this is one of the elements that I talk about in my new book, Time Crafting, which is the idea of reasoned productivity, ruthless productivity, and reckless productivity. I'm not going to get into all the details of what those other elements are, but the idea of being reasoned as opposed to reasonable is tricky. Reasonable tends to mean like, oh, I'm just going to do what's reasonable. Awesome. Reasoned, nice to see you, first name, last name. Reasoned, the idea of reasoned is to be measured, is to be thoughtful, is to be prudent. And this is where I think now more than ever, we need to start thinking about this stuff. And the opportunity is there for us to do that as well, because things have, as crazy as things are speeding up in some elements, we are slowing and being more thoughtful about other things. And this can be applied to you both if you run a large business or if you are running a solo business, or whether you're just the day life stuff. You can start to take a beat, take 60 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever you need to do, and just ask yourself, is this something that's prudent? Is it something that's reasoned? Is this a reasoned approach to doing something right now? So what I want to get into is there's 3 things that I think you can do to be productive and have prudence in mind. Hello. And by the way, any questions or anything, put in the chat. If you're watching this after the fact, you can put in the comments. I'll address them later. But I think this is a video that I really want to make sure stands the test of time, because it doesn't just apply to times of uncertainty. It applies to times that are more certain, because you can start to apply what you can control into the situation. So let's get into that. So the first thing that I want to mention when it comes to being prudent with your productivity is the idea of this quote right here. Do what you can where you are with what you have. Okay, so I had this coaster given to me, and it's actually more of it can also hang on the back of a door, but I used it as a coaster. And this coaster is something that my mother gave me several years ago as a gift. And I didn't really think about it too much then. This is years before I was doing productivity stuff, but this really applies right now. The idea of what can you do where you are with what you have. Okay. As many people are being asked to remote work or work from home, and we're seeing a lot of stuff out there right now about like, here's how to work best for remote workers, and here's how you can do that. I want to dig even deeper than that and talk about what happens when you're getting ready, or when there's the chance, or when there's the possibility of you having to work remotely. You won't be able to do certain things from the office. And this, by the way, I have to stress, this does not apply to everyone. There are certain people that cannot work remotely or are going to be asked to, just leave their job site, and they can't do elements of their job on because they're not at the office, or they're not at the factory or the location of work. But this is where this quote comes into mind. Do what you can where you are with what you have. if right now where you are is at the office, is at your place of work, and based on whether it's a situation like we're currently in where there's so much uncertainty and you don't know when you're going to be home or asked to work from home, or whether you're getting ready to go on vacation, or whether it's a Friday and you're going home for the weekend, always ask yourself, what can I do based on where I am? That's a very important thing you can do. When all of these other pieces of information are flying around us, the prudent thing to do is say, okay, right now I know that I'm at my desk at my office. What are the things I can only do, not just do, but only do when I am here in my office, at my place of work, with these resources I can only get here at this time? Okay? So if you work in an environment where privacy issues are a huge deal and you won't have access to, say, server information or certain files, this is where all you really need to do, and this is a step you can take now that you can future-proof your to-do list later, is to create a mode based on the place that you work. Now, it could be a very general, broad strokes mode of office, let's say. When I'm in office mode, that means these are the things I can do only when I'm at the office. As a matter of fact, if you're already practicing elements of time crafting, you know about mode-based work already. So you may have multiple ones. You may say, hey, this is an office task, which is a resource-based mode, but it's also going to take me 5 minutes. Okay? In instances like this, you're going to look, if you're looking at the 5 categories of mode-based work, and I'm going to deal with more of that later. If you've watched my other videos, you can see this stuff, or followed my work elsewhere, you know what this stuff is. But you can say to yourself, okay, I know that right now the resources that I have are thus. Therefore, this is the most prudent action I can take right now. Make that your first lens of which to look through your to-do list. Where are you? Are you at the office? Yes. Do you know you will only be at the office for a limited amount of time? Yes. Okay, great. What can you do when you're there that you cannot do anywhere else? Don't look at tasks that will take 5 minutes, because you might have some 5-minute tasks you can do off-site, right? Don't look at writing tasks or any tasks that are activity-based, because some of those might be able to happen off-site as well, right? Look at the place that you are, and then do what you can with what you have. So if you are looking at your to-do list right now, and you don't have a way of filtering that list based on your whereabouts, your location, that you may not have access to on an ongoing basis or on a consistent basis or for a prolonged period of time, and you have things that you know need to be done, then create a way to filter your list that way. Okay, I call it the Roosevelt principle, or whatever you want to call it. I don't care. That's really integral right now, because all the other modes won't matter. 5 minute, you can do 5-minute tasks from other locations, right? I mean, your energy levels, all these things. Right now, you need to be prudent and say, what can I do where I am, knowing that I may not be able to be here for a prolonged period of time. Okay? All right, so that's the first step. The second step is to slow down. If you're paying attention to what's going on right now and again, this applies beyond what's going on in uncertain times. Slowing down and being thoughtful and mindful and deliberate, it's one of the elements of reason. To have, to be able to, to have foresight, wisdom, things like that, things that are enveloped in prudence. Slowing down, taking a beat can be very powerful, because then you'll do things like, okay, I know I'm only going to be in the office at this point in time. Or you know what? I know that I'm working from home and I need to connect with someone, but rather than try to connect with them nonstop, let me gather that information and send them all these things at once, rather than constantly use the tool like Slack or Asana or Microsoft Teamwork or whatever to go back and forth. See, the other thing about this thing, which you noticed, is the quote is by Theodore Roosevelt, but they spelled Theodore wrong, which I always find kind of classic, like very, very hilarious, because they were probably making a ton of these and they were sold fairly cheaply. These are not exactly, amazingly high quality products. So the quality suffered, not just in terms of, I mean, the message matters, but that message is there too. The idea of, hey, look, this is spelled incorrectly. Quality will suffer if you don't slow down. And in times where you are not as connected with people, either face to face, or supply chains are broken, or the connectivity is going to be spread out and distractions are at an all-time high, because that's what it is. We're being distracted, we're being disrupted, and distractions and or disruptions. Distractions are things that you can mitigate. You know, for example, let's say you want to turn off your phone. You're looking at Facebook and you're getting alerts about COVID-19. We're going to use that as an example. That's a distraction. You could turn that off, right? Disruptions are, oh my God, I can't do things from where I am because I'm being told to leave work, you know, or I'm being told to stay at home. That's a disruption. But both of those things can lead to the third D, which is diversion. All of a sudden, you're going down this path you had no intention of going down, and then you're wondering how you got there. But when you slow down, you're not only being thoughtful about what you're going to do next, but you're not moving in the wrong direction very quickly either. So you can change course easily. So just take a breath, slow down. Filtering your list will help with the because you can say, I need to filter my list. Okay, I need to do things that are going to be more prudent at this time. Okay. Another thing is, because the day-to-day has been disrupted, you can start to do things that you wouldn't normally be able to do during the day-to-day. I have a strong feeling that when all of this uncertainty has settled down a bit, that there will be more people working from home going forward. I don't think it's going to be widespread. I don't think it's going to be, but I believe that that's what's going to happen, because there is going to be some ways for business owners to be able to measure more effectively how things are going, and people are going to be more prudent about what they do at home because they want to make sure that they're delivering the goods. So I think that's going to happen. But in the meantime, since the day-to-day has been disrupted, when you slow down, think about the things that you haven't been able to do because your days have been so hectic and fast-paced that you've been wanting to do. Things like organizing your file structure, you know, learning something new. Things that you may not have been able to do in the past, now you have a better chance to be able to do them, right? Especially if you're working remotely, because in most cases, a lot, and there have been studies on this, I can't quote them right now, so I'm not going to get into that, but remote work, by and large, has been very effective and more productive because people are focused on the work. They're not getting disrupted. And I think Nir Eyal had a piece recently that the biggest distraction in a workplace are coworkers, right? So now you're not as connected. So you'll be able to do more, which means you can then set aside time to do the things that you haven't been able to do because of distractions, disruptions, diversions, those kind of things. Okay? Now, I'm going to sidebar here with a 2B. When you slow down, think about the way you want to communicate with your colleagues, your people you're connected with. If, let's say, we're practicing things like social distancing. Today on social media, I posted several ways that you can use social media, such as Facebook Messenger, Instagram Messenger, LinkedIn, where you can hit the voice record button and not dictate to someone a message, but actually leave them a message. I'm not saying you should leave a 10-minute long diatribe with someone, but when you're no longer able to connect with them face-to-face every day, having a voice that allows you to see that there's a human on the other side is really, really powerful. Really powerful. Again, use them at your discretion. Use them wisely. Maybe use them with the people that you really need to use them most with. And this isn't just for coworkers. This is for family members, anybody. I think that that's really powerful. I had my cousin. I messaged my cousin via voicemail on Facebook, and she was pleasantly surprised to hear my voice, number one, but also didn't realize it was something that could be done. So get familiar with that and use it wisely, okay? Because in a moment where your workplace or your environment is disrupted and connectivity is only through channels that are digital, having ways to create a more human connection can be really productive, because it makes you shows you that you're not alone and that you're all working subjectively towards objectives, right? So that's something to keep in mind. And another side effect to this is that it's often faster to say something than to write something. So there's that too. Finally, as we, I only want to spend about a half hour on here. And by the way, any questions, please drop them in the chat. I know I've got a couple people in the chat here. Finally, the third thing is, I really think that business owners, so larger businesses and even individuals, need to identify the things that they need to do versus the things that they want to do versus the things that they ought to do. And that's just really prudent to do no matter what. This is a time, any time really, where you can get aligned. And if you've ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and Maslow was a psychologist that studied human qualities, and there's this pyramid where it kind of graduates up, and there's the basic needs, and then there's the higher level needs. And as the basic needs get met, then they're not as motivating as, say, the higher needs. Well, again, in situations where there's a lot of uncertainty, we tend to go back to our basic needs, which are physiological. So breathing, food, water, sex, sleep, all the things that, basically are basic, physiological needs, right? We need to support those. That's important. Safety, that's another big thing. And we're seeing, we always see in times of crisis or anxiety, that level get met, or at least that level feeling that it needs to get met. And sometimes panic can ensue in this situation. But remember, in certain situations, both in terms of co-working situations, such as a business, or in societal instances, we're all in this together. So, there's that saying, we're only as strong as our weakest link, right? So there's that. Then there's love and belonging. And this is the part I just mentioned, which is the idea of having friendship, family, and intimacy. That's the connection piece that we need to make sure we have in place, right? Then there's esteem, which is self-esteem, confidence. Those things kind of get disrupted a bit when we have a lack of connection. And then finally, self-actualization, which is the highest level. And that can actually, in instances like this, could be more readily realized, because once you take care of those other things and there's less disruptions and distractions in your way, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, what do I really want? You have some time to think. When you have time to think, you have time to self-actualize, right? And get clarity and awareness and focus and give attention to the things that you intend to do. So what does this mean by needs to do and oughts to do and wants to do? Thanks, John. I'll get to your question in just a minute. So when I've got this framework that I've been working on behind the scenes, and it's kind of been in its beta form for a while. I've worked on a couple of it with a bit of it with some coaching clients, especially ones that have large businesses, mostly B2B situations, but this can be done in personal ones. I've used it as well. I use what I call the productivity ROI, which is the realized objective index. And it's a scoring system for your to-do list. It's not like Todoist Karma, if you've been following it. It's very, very it's self scoring, so there is a lot of nuance to it. And again, it's still in its infancy. I'd say it's probably a beta more than an alpha. But the idea is, and I'm going to go a bit bare bones with this here, is that you assign a numeric value to either a need or a want, or a need to do, an ought to do, or a want to do, which spells the acronym for now. Right? These are the things that are now on your plate. So something that you need to do would essentially fall into those lower levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but in a business sense. So things you need to do, if you're looking at it from a personal vantage point, let's say you need to go buy groceries, right? Or you need to pay a bill, or you need to send that email off to a client to let them know that you're going to be away for the next 2 weeks. Needs are often tied up with either they've come up quickly, which means they're urgent, or they're just things that are mandatory. I don't like to say they're have to do's, because have to sounds external, need to sounds internal. If it's something that you feel that you need to do, or it's something that you've been directed that you need to do, which is when we get into the B2B component, the business owner saying, hey, you need to do this, then it's scored at a value of 1. So 1 point for every need to. So you would assign it a value of 1. And I'm going to get into this deeper. I'm going to share with you a URL in the description, but I'll share with you. I'll actually drop it into the chat right now so that people can sign up, and they're going to get a little bit more information on this. I'm not charging anything for this, so don't. I'm trying to help people with the situation. So That would be a 1. Now let's talk about the ought to do. Now the ought to do stuff is stuff that you haven't decided. An ought to is when you say I ought to do this, there's no commitment behind it. It's something you're considering, right? It's a consideration, which is fine. Considerations matter, but they need to be turned into a need or a want. Considerations, so oughts, often turn into a need when they become urgent or they become necessary. Hence need, right? So therefore, they would then be scored at a 1. But and by the way, if an ought to do turns into something that you really want to do, it's going to help you hit that 5th level of self-actualization, bigger picture stuff, massive outcomes, higher quality values, going to future proofing, for lack of a better term, like, so it's growth oriented, right? That's going to be a want. Okay. But oughts, as they stand, because they are very middling, you're waffling, you're considering, there's nothing really, they're vaporware, they're valued at 0. So anything that you evaluate, a task on your list that you ought to do, you would mark as a 0. Okay. Let's get to the want to do items. So these are things that you really want to do, right? Things that are not necessarily urgent, but they are important, but they aren't necessarily something that either need to be done today because they're not a need, but they're things you might want to do today or in the future. If you look at an item and it's a want to do item, then it would be valued at 2 points. Okay? And again, these valuations are set either by the individual or the organization or the superior. Okay? Let's talk about it if it's you on your own. So let's say that you need to email a client. That's a 1. You feel like you ought to do an SEO audit of your website. Well, that's a 0. And let's say that you want to set up a landing page for a new domain that you've built. That's a 2. If it's something that you need and want to do, then it's still a 1. Okay? It's still only valued at a 1. Okay? And that's key, because often if it's something that you want to do, but it's turned into a need, and this is the beta portion. This is how I'm scoring it as it stands right now. Then chances are it was something that you probably should have done earlier and you just haven't. Okay? It's now down in those lower tiers of Maslow's needs, right? The level 1, 2, it's probably closer to a 3 or a 4 in that hierarchy. Wants are generally at the 5. Okay. So and then what happens is, as you go through your day, as you complete those items, you're checking off. Yep, I did a 1. Great. I'm going to get 1 point for that. I get a 2. And ultimately you get what's called the ROI, the Realized Objective Index. And then when you score it, and I'm going to share more with this with you later. We don't have time to get into this today. And it's something I'm going to spend the weekend really digging into, because I think it's a need. This was something I've wanted to do for a long time. Now it's turned into a need, so it's not worth as many points to me to develop it. But it will give you a score that tells you, yes, you were productive. You like hit the baseline. No, you weren't. Or you were really productive. Like you went above and beyond. Now, if you complete ought to items, they're not worth any points. So it's worth your while. What this does is filter it into the things you need to do, the things you want to do. Then when you're done those, you can decide, hey, do these oughts need to turn into needs or wants? Most of them will probably turn into wants if you're going to do them. Some of them just don't get done at all. But that's the process here. So at first, all I want you to do leading into this is just identifying the things you need and or want to do. Don't worry about the oughts. If you can't decide, you're not going to give it a point value to it anyways. You're not going to give it you don't want to give it notice. In moments like this, you want to move the needle forward. In every moment, you want to move the needle forward. Ideally, you want to move a good balance, a harmony of needs and wants forward. In times of speed or necessity, you're going to move mostly needs forward and very few wants. In slow times, you're going to get to move a lot more wants forward, and the needs will ultimately, they will still get done, but you're going to be able to do a lot more wants. So that's what I'm talking about here. And if you go to bit.ly/prudent productivity, and I bought the domain yesterday. I bought Prudent Productivity yesterday because I thought it was prudent to do so. And I'm going to be, you go there, add yourself to the waiting list. I'm going to start presenting more stuff around this because this is the time that we need it. Okay, both for business owners, large and small, as well as for individuals, such as John, who's saying, any tips for someone who has worked from home for years and now facing the heightened distractions from around the world, and then starting Monday spring break with kids from home who for knows who how many weeks? Yeah, I'm in that boat too. My kids go home. I mean, we were supposed to have a 2-week spring break. They may extend it. They haven't decided what they're going to do in British Columbia yet, but at least 2 weeks. Number one, the one thing I've always done here, and because I worked for home for same as you for years, is I have, and this is something it's been in the mind's eye for a while, but if you have one already or you want to make one, and maybe this is a project you can give your kids, which I think is kind of neat, is a door hanger, okay, or office hours, something to put on your door. And again, this is if you have a separate door, okay, to use it. And right now there's you can't see it, but obviously my door's shut. But I have a hanger on my door that says "Do not disturb." If the door is shut with that on it, it means can't come in. Please don't knock. Please don't do anything. In fact, for years my son thought that I was doing a podcast. He still thinks that when that door is shut. Now he's 10. He has a better sense of it. If the door is shut, but you do not have the hanger on it, so I don't have the hanger on it, means you can knock. Knock and I'll answer. If the door is wide open, come on in. Okay, so there's that. Now, John, if you do not have a door, I know, Dom, I don't think you do either. There are other ways to signify or trigger that you're working. And I know it's going to be hard to distract yourself, to keep yourself from being distracted. Number one, and I remember when I worked in an office in Victoria, the Victoria Film Festival, our graphic designer put on these kind of headphones, open-ear headphones, which you can still get. You can get them delivered to you via Amazon or whatever. And he put music over his ears. Well, what we thought was music. He wasn't listening to anything. He put it over top of his ears, and no one bothered him. It also blocked out some of the noise. That's one recommendation that I would give, okay? And you could even use a tool like Focus at Will to block out some of the noise if you want. A secondary thing you can do, and again, this is all dependent on where you're at in terms of people coming home and being around you. Articles of clothing, like a uniform, can signify to your kids and to people around you what you're doing. So I'm wearing, like right now I'm wearing a nice merino wool shirt that I got from Costco. This is the kind of stuff I normally wear at work. My kids know this. If I was wearing, and I wear jeans. So I have a very clear uniform that I wear for work. If I was wearing a t-shirt, that might signify something different. Again, I have the benefit of an office door. If you are working from home and you don't have that, one recommendation, it's very simple. Clearly demonstrate and share with your friends, your colleagues, your people you live with. When I wear a collared shirt, it means I'm at work, so I'm going to need to be not interrupted. When I wear a t-shirt or a shirt that doesn't have a collar, it means I'm fine. Okay? If you are wearing, if you like to wear a ball cap when you're not working, put that on, right? Do something small that can send a signal. That's, I think, key. Because the focus really needs to be on you getting the attention back. And it doesn't have to be like a big deal. It could be a hanger on a door. It can be headphones on your ears. It can be a simple uniform change. Those things are simple, flexible, and durable. You could do them anytime, anywhere, right? So that's what I would recommend, okay? And again, you may have to use a combination of those things, right? And we don't know how many weeks they're going to be home. I also recommend that when you put these things in place and you've got kids, you may want to sit them down and let them know, hey, you guys might be home for a while because of the uncertainty that's going on right now. But the one thing is for certain is this. We're here for you. Like, again, you want to create a calm, sensible environment and with clear signals, because in times of uncertainty, clarity helps with awareness so that you don't have the uncertainty in other areas are not as heightened, right? So if my kids are home for the next 2 weeks, which they are, and my door is shut, they know I'm working. And then again, you're setting boundaries there, and you need to respect those boundaries, because if you don't, they won't. So it's not like I can have my door open when I don't want to be interrupted because I want some fresh air or whatever. Like, you need to be consistent, because that sends a message. I hope that was helpful. And I think that that's useful no matter whether you work from home regularly or whether you're working from home because of circumstance. That's what I have to share about that. So prudence is the key here. I've been to we've been through certain scenarios before. This scenario is definitely unique, what we're facing right now. But it doesn't have to grind everything to a halt. You can be smart about it. You can be reasoned about it. You can be prudent about it. If you want to keep up with the goings on in the world, but you don't want it to interrupt you, set a boundary as to how you want to deal with that. Maybe no social media until later in the day. Maybe you set up, I use a service called Mailbrew, and maybe you just have those emails come through to you once a day that gives you updates on what's going on in the world in either a very specific area or broader strokes. But the key right now is to keep moving forward as best you can, and the best way is to be proactive and prudent. And when you can't be proactive, again, prudence is the way to go. It's one of the virtues, after all. So it's been around for a long time. The things that have been around for a long time, look at Stoicism. Look what Ryan Holiday talks about with Stoicism. Look at a lot of people are reading up on older texts right now. This is your chance. There is, as crazy as this sounds, there is opportunity in what's happening right now. You need to look for it. And then this is a great time to create new boundaries, start new habits, prioritize in a way that makes sense. So that's really what I wanted to share with you today on this live. Thanks for the questions. Thanks, Dom, for the thoughts. Again, simple, flexible, durable is always the answer. I know I've seen some people, we've got these apps that we're going to do that we're going to put out that are going to help with this kind of situation. Apps come and go. Apps aren't necessarily durable. Not everybody knows how to use apps. I spoke to a friend today who said that their partner is starting to use Zoom for meetings. They don't know how to use Zoom. You're going to have technologically challenged things. Now, John, you've got another question. I'll keep going. Would I lower my own expectations over how much daily work I can get done if the family is housebound for more than a few weeks? Absolutely. And here's the thing is, again, that's prudence, right? Reason, right? I don't know, John, if you're a morning person or a night owl. I'm a night owl, so I always tend to do more work later in the evening anyway. And what's interesting is that people are saying, right now, if you want to go out in public, we're going to use this very specific example to go grocery shopping, go later in the evening. Like go late in the evening because there's people that are not out, right? I tend to do my best work in the evening because there's no interruptions, no distractions. I would not survive very long in a 9-to-5 situation. So you can definitely temper your expectations, but you can also adjust your working hours to a degree if your company allows it. You have more agency to a degree over where your time goes. So you may be able to make those choices around it, but definitely, absolutely. And this is where, and I've talked about this before, the idea of journaling can be really beneficial. Not only in here's what I was able to do today, and man, this has been tough, but also just to vent, just to release anxiety, tension, normalize things a bit, right? Taking a couple minutes to just do that, because things have slowed down. And when they've slowed down, it gives you time to move and think and breathe. So to me, yes, I would definitely, and this is, again, why I would look at that need to do, want to do, right? That idea of what I said later. So identify, okay, these are the things I need to do, these things I want to do, right? Because MITs are fine. We've heard about most important tasks. You can go that route. But in this case, you're saying, okay, these are all the things I need to do. Bang those out. And then if that's all you can get done, so be it. And that's why I like the ROI, because if you have 10 tasks on your to-do list and they're all need to-dos, you're going to get a ROI of 1.0, which is a productive day, right? Now, if you have 20 tasks on there and 10 of them are need to-dos and 10 of them are ought to-dos, and you are evaluating yourself on everything on your list, you're going to get a 0.5, right? And that's going to be well, you weren't terribly productive. You took up time doing things you ought to do instead of things you needed to do. You put things on your list that you were just considering, right? So this is an example of where that can come into play. Hey, I'm only going to focus on the things I need to do today, and then that'll be it. If I get some want to do stuff, perfect. It's all about being honest about about what you can do. And I definitely think that yes, you can, but within reason. Again, prudence. Don't use it. This is a big problem. A lot of people might leverage this situation as oh good, I get to. There's always going to be people that will take advantage of situations. I've told this story before about the idea of the lounger ant. I was in a workshop once, and we were talking about different insects. We were all told to study a different group of insects, and we studied bees, but another group studied ants. And there was an ant that was to be found in colonies, and it's not just one, there's several, but there's not many, and they're called the lounger ant. And all they do is follow the colony, not doing much of anything, and they're siphoning off of what everyone else in the colony is doing. So that happens in the insect world. We know it happens in society as well. So again, within reason, create reasoned expectations. Not reasonable, reasoned. There's a difference, I think. There's a nuance between those. So know that there will be people that will not be able to do nearly as much because of where they are, and there will be people that will choose not to because they are going to take advantage of the situation. You have a choice as to how to deal with that. That's a matter of character, integrity, all those other things that are also virtues. You get to make that call, and you will deal with the consequences of that. Right? I'm not saying, John, that you're that person, but I'm saying that you ultimately will deal with that, right? And again, I think that in certain situations, this kind of scenario will, especially if people start using something like the productivity ROI, business owners especially, they'll go, okay, well, wait, this person isn't really doing the things that they need to be doing. So they're not being as productive. We got to figure out why. It's going to illuminate those people. And it'll also illuminate the people that are really doing the work. So there you go. I hope that was helpful. That's it for now. I think that this was I hope you got a lot out of this. Thank you so much for watching, whether you watched live, whether you watched the recording. Really hope this was helpful. Again, bit.ly, you just go to prudentproductivity.com and it's there as well. And just sign up, and I'm going to start to really focus on some of this. I'm going to spend some time on the weekend getting some of this productivity ROI stuff done, as well as other things related to what I talked about today, because what the world needs now is more prudence. We're seeing it in a lot of situations where we're seeing the prudent actions being taken across the world, both individually and collectively. And I think with productivity, we can do a lot of the same. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today. I really appreciate it. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. We'll see you later.